Have you ever thought about those, really wild corners of the planet, places we picture as totally remote, uh, untouched? We sort of imagine they're immune to human stuff, right? Sanctuaries where nature just does its own thing. But sometimes the biggest surprises, maybe the most urgent warnings, actually come from those very places. Today's deep dive really shakes that up. We're looking at a finding that honestly changes how we need to see the biodiversity crisis. We're talking about a big, fast drop in insect numbers. And not just in cities or on farms, which we hear about a lot. No, this is happening in supposedly pristine remote landscapes. It's, yeah, pretty concerning. Okay, let's unpack this. To really get it, we need to look at the study itself. So our main source today is this pretty groundbreaking investigation. It's from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, reported by SciTech Daily. And this study, it really shines a light on an aspect of insect decline we haven't focused on enough. It's frankly quite alarming. It makes us question where environmental change is really hitting hardest. So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to explore these, well, surprising findings. We'll dig into the specific data, the numbers behind this decline, and really try to grasp what it means for ecosystems, for biodiversity everywhere. We want to show you why this study is so important and what it reveals about the true scale, the global scale of this crisis.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, I think, is how it shifts our whole baseline, our understanding. For decades, when we talked insect decline, the conversation was almost always about places humans had directly changed. Farmland with pesticides, forests being cleared, cities sprawling out. And those are huge factors, absolutely. We have tons of data, especially from North America, Europe. But this research, by looking at untouched areas, it gives us this critical, almost chilling new angle. It shows the problem goes way beyond our immediate visible footprint. It makes us think about drivers that are, well, bigger, more global, maybe more subtle in how they reach these places.
That is a crucial distinction, isn't it? Because the common thinking is pesticides, habitat loss, the direct stuff. We tend to think, okay, if a place is remote, it's safe, like there's a natural barrier.
Yeah.
But this study says, maybe not. So how does it really shift that perspective, especially given all the previous data focusing on human-altered areas? It sounds like we might have been missing a really big piece of the puzzle.
Exactly right. A lot of the research, the older research, focused on ecosystems heavily changed by us. And those studies, incredibly valuable. They showed clear links to local problems, local stressors, but they also left this huge gap, almost a blind spot in our understanding. This new UNC work, it's specifically aimed to fill that gap, looking at largely untouched environments. It asks, very deliberately, questions about insect declines and their drivers in more natural areas. That forces us to look beyond the immediate, the local pollution or habitat fragmentation. We have to start considering systemic things, like climate change, things that work globally, things that can reach even a really isolated mountain meadow. It's about seeing the forces affecting all ecosystems, not just the obviously damaged ones.
Okay, so this isn't just confirming stuff we know about disturbed areas. This is really pushing into new territory. Can you give us the nuts and bolts of this study then? Who did it? Where exactly? And the time frame. We need to understand the foundation here, especially for such a big claim about remote areas suffering too.
Absolutely. So the lead researcher was Keith Sockman. He's an associate professor of biology at UNC Chapel Hill. And he undertook this incredible commitment. They monitored flying insect populations over 15 separate field systems. That spanned 2 decades, from 2004 all the way to 2024, just finished. And the location was key. It was a subalpine meadow in Colorado. Just to clarify, a subalpine meadow that's like a high-altitude grassland right below where the trees stop growing. It has its own specific hardy plants, insects adapted to, well, pretty tough conditions. And crucially, the site was picked because it had minimal human impact, very little direct disturbance. The other great thing, scientifically, was that they also had 38 years of historical weather records for that spot, which let them really dive deep into potential links, especially climate links.
Wow, 20 years. 15 field seasons in one meadow, basically untouched, plus decades of weather data.
Yeah.
That's some serious long-term ecological research. Gives the findings real weight. So what were the actual numbers? How bad was the decline in this seemingly pristine place? I'm picturing these meadows just getting quieter and quieter.
The findings were, stark is the right word. Pretty alarming, actually. Sockman's analysis found an average annual drop of 6.6% in insect abundance. Now, 6.6% a year. Sometimes annual numbers sound kind of small, right? But you compound that year after year for 2 decades, it adds up to a 72.4% loss. 72.4% over 2 decades.
Wow.
Basically, nearly 3/4 of the flying insects there in 2004. Just gone by 2024.
That's staggering.
It's a profound disappearance. And here's the kicker. The decline was strongly, statistically strongly, linked to rising summer temperatures during that period. It points very clearly to a powerful environmental driver, a systemic issue that even these remote places can't escape.
Okay, 72.4% loss in a place with minimal human impact. That's the truly shocking part. So how does that work? How do hotter summers lead to such a huge drop in insects? What's actually happening to them?
Yeah. Well, it's complex, but rising summer temps in these high-altitude places can be especially tough for insects. Many mountain species are really finely tuned, specific temperature ranges, specific timing for their life cycles. So when summers get hotter or longer, it messes everything up. For instance, some insects might emerge too early, before their food plants, maybe specific flowers, are ready. That's called a phenological mismatch.
Ah, okay. Bad timing.
Exactly. Or the heat might speed up their development too much. They mature, reproduce maybe, and die off before the season really ends, cuts down their reproductive time. Plus, the heat itself is stressful. It increases their metabolic rate, reduces how long they survive. And think about the plants, too. Warmer temps can change what grows in the meadow, maybe fewer of the specific plants these specialized insects rely on.
Right.
Basically, the climate's changing faster than these specialized mountain insects can adapt.
No.
It pushes them past their limits, messes up their rhythms.
That's a really sobering picture. Like they're caught in this environmental squeeze. So, okay, what does this mean for us, for you listening right now? Why should we care if insects vanish from some remote mountain meadow, maybe thousands of miles away? What are these essential roles they play that make this so important, even if it feels distant?
Yeah, and that's the critical question, isn't it? Keith Sockman, the researcher, put it really well. He said, insects have a unique, if inauspicious, position in the biodiversity crisis due to the ecological services, such as nutrient cycling and pollination they provide, and to their vulnerability to environmental change. He was also stressed really clearly, insects are necessary for terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems to function, period.
Okay, ecological services. Break that down a bit. Nutrient cycling, pollination.
Think of it like this. Insects are the tiny, often invisible workers that keep the whole planet running. Take nutrient cycling. That's breaking down dead stuff, leaves, wood, animal waste, and returning nutrients to the soil. Dung beetles, termites, countless little things in the soil. They're constantly doing this cleanup and recycling. Without them, our landscapes would literally choke on dead stuff and soils would just get depleted. Plants couldn't grow well.
Okay, vital cleanup crew.
Totally. And then pollination. We think bees, sure, but flies, moths, beetles, so many others. They pollinate a huge amount of our crops. Apples, almonds, you name it, and pretty much all the wildflowers that are the base of food webs out in nature. And beyond that, insects are food for birds, fish, bats, reptiles, amphibians, other mammals. They're foundational. So when you lose 3/4 of them, even some more remote, you're not just losing bugs. You're pulling threads from the whole ecological fabric. You're destabilizing the system that supports, well, everything else, including us.
It's so easy to just dismiss them as bugs, isn't it? But you're reminding us these services are fundamental, foundational. Without them, the whole web just unravels. It's not just about losing a pretty butterfly. It's the support system quietly collapsing. Okay, let's focus specifically on mountains then. Are they especially at risk? What does this study suggest about their future?
Yes, Sockman explicitly points this out. He says these results are particularly urgent for conserving mountain biodiversity. He highlights that mountains are host to disproportionately high numbers of locally adapted endemic species, including insects. Endemic just means species that evolved right there in that specific mountain environment and often live nowhere else.
Unique locals, basically.
Exactly, and they're often super specialized, which means they're usually less able to cope with rapid change. Imagine, like, a beetle that only lives in a tiny temperature range at one altitude eating one specific plant. As it gets warmer, its habitat literally shrinks or moves uphill.
Until there's no uphill left to go.
Precisely. There's only so far they can go before they run out of mountain. So if these places, which we thought were safe havens, biodiversity hotspots, if they're seeing these huge declines, that's got massive global implications. It raises this really serious question Sockman poses. Is the status of mountains as biodiversity hotspots in jeopardy? If these declines are happening broadly, it suggests that even these unique, often isolated biodiversity pockets aren't safe from global changes. In fact, they might be canaries in the coal mine. Their inhabitants have nowhere else to run.
This research really does paint a stark picture. It drives home that this crisis isn't just, polluted rivers or logged forests. It's reaching into the wilderness we thought was safe. It shows how pervasive these changes really are.
So what's a big takeaway then about the global scale, the urgency of tackling climate change? The message from the study is, well, it's crystal clear and amplified by these findings. First, it highlights the need for more comprehensive monitoring of insect populations in a variety of landscapes. Because we can't manage what we don't measure, right? Our focus on human-impacted areas was giving us an incomplete picture.
We need eyes everywhere. The
You
second.
do. But the deeper point, the real core implication is that it adds urgency to addressing climate change. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this research really hammers home that climate change isn't a local issue. You can't just fence it out. By showing that even remote, seemingly pristine ecosystems are suffering dramatically, it absolutely underscores the global scale of the biodiversity crisis. It means simply protecting a patch of land, calling it a park or reserve, isn't enough if the climate itself is making it unlivable for the species there. It's a potent reminder that changes in our atmosphere, driven by global emissions, don't respect boundaries. They affect every single corner of the Earth, no matter how untouched we thought it was.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap that core, surprising finding from today's deep dive. Insect populations are crashing dramatically and fast, not just where we develop land, but even in remote, undisturbed places, like that Colorado meadow. And climate change, specifically those rising summer temperatures, looks like a major culprit, messing with their life cycles, pushing them past their limits. We're talking that truly striking 72.4% loss in just 2 decades in one carefully studied spot.
Yeah, and stepping back, what this really reinforces, I think, is just how absolutely essential, how foundational insects are in all ecosystems. This isn't just about one species or one mountain range. It's about the basic machinery of nature. Whether it's your local park or a remote mountain peak, insects are doing that critical work. Pollination, breaking down waste, being food, seeing their vulnerability, even in these untouched spots, it's a really profound and urgent warning sign. The integrity of our global ecosystems is genuinely at risk.
It really forces us to face something profound, doesn't it? If nature, where we thought it was safest, is suffering these huge losses, what does that truly tell us about how far climate change is reaching, its pervasive impact? And what are the knock-on effects, the cascades through the food web that we haven't even started to fully grasp? If these foundational species keep vanishing, even where we thought they were okay, think about that silent transformation, those once buzzing meadows, the unseen impacts on life's delicate balance everywhere. So this deep dive, maybe it's an invitation for you to look at the natural world, even the smallest things buzzing or crawling nearby. Look with maybe a new awareness, a fresh appreciation for the critical, often invisible job they do, supporting all life, including ours. The fate of these tiny creatures, even in the most remote places, it really does reflect the health of our entire planet.